Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense nominee for Donald Trump, and his lawyers are publicly attacking the woman who claims that she was raped by Hegseth in a hotel room in 2017. She's a 30-year-old staffer for a California Republican organization. She signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and now the lawyers for Hegseth and Hegseth himself are attacking her veracity in advance of his confirmation hearing. You're on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. I sit at the intersection and I cover matters like this with commentary and analysis like no other. I'm Michael Popok at the intersection. Let's talk about the new information, new developments coming out of the world of this troubled candidate for Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth. I've done other hot takes about his right-wing Christian nationalist mentality that he's going to bring to the office, his approach to women, which is negative. He's already said no women should be in combat roles in the military, disparaging tens of thousands of women who have served with valor in our military, because he believes under his Christian fundamentalism that only men can be in command and control positions. And now we've got the new reporting. This report was delivered to the Trump campaign from this 30-year-old victim of this rape. She claims that she was raped. Pete Hegseth, of course, says what every man says when he's accused of being raped, that it was consensual. If it was so consensual, why did you pay her X amount of dollars, make her sign a non-disclosure agreement? Now, Tim Parlatore, who's Pete Hegseth's lawyer, went on Breitbart to threaten the victim. Nothing says I definitely raped somebody like trying to cover it up with an NDA and sending your pit bull lawyer who used to work for Donald Trump, Tim Parlatore, onto the media to attack and try to crush her and to intimidate her. That's called witness intimidation and witness tampering. If I were the prosecutors in California, I would be looking strongly into these claims, regardless of the NDA. You just heard Tim Parlatore do a couple of things. Let me tell you about him first. Tim Parlatore had represented Donald Trump in a couple of his criminal matters, including Mar-a-Lago, but then fired Donald Trump and no longer represented him after he refused to follow Tim Parlatore's advice to comply with the directives of the Department of Justice and the return of the documents from Mar-a-Lago. And instead, it got to the point where they had to finally get a search warrant and execute it. And Tim Parlatore said, I'm out of here. Now, Tim Parlatore is still apparently in the MAGA world. I don't think Hegseth got to Parlatore by accident. I'm sure he was placed there, if I had to guess, by somebody in the Trump administration. According to prior testimony or prior interviews with Parlatore, who represents a lot of these right-wing nuts in cases, he said one of the reasons he left is also because of Boris Epstein's role in the Trump organization and Trump administration, which he still serves, which he plays some sort of consigliere, trying to do legal strategy, even though he's never been a criminal defense lawyer. He's barely practiced law. He's always been sort of the fixer for Donald Trump ever since Michael Cohen left. So Parlatore then goes, as you just saw on Breitbart, not so subtle threat against the victim. If I were the victim represented by a lawyer, I'd fire back. And if he does or she does, I'll report on it and say, don't tamper with me. Don't try to intimidate me. Now, he references very interestingly, because this is what they're worried about. He referenced Christine Blasey Ford. For those that are just kind of catching up to this story late, Christine Blasey Ford is the person with a doctorate. She's a doctor who testified very authentically under oath against Brett Kavanaugh 5-6 years ago, claiming that he had sexually assaulted, abused, and raped her. And others were ready to come forward as well. But that was an entire sort of, the fix was in with Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, Brett Kavanaugh, which was the favorite of the Federalist Society and the NRA, the National Rifle Association. They were never going to let his candidacy go down in flames. And so they boxed out all of the victims. They did not let them testify. They didn't let the FBI do their job and do vetting. That's what Trump is starting to do now. He's not going to let the FBI do their job on any of his candidates in vetting them and doing background checks, in delivering that information to the Senate. The Senate has a job to do. The Senate's job to do is to advise and ultimately consent or reject federal officers and cabinet's position officers. How can they do that without information? I mean, with Christine Blasey Ford, there were over 2,000 tips that were phoned into the FBI hotline. And all the senators got in order to evaluate Kavanaugh was just this unedited printout of all of the tips and complaints without analysis or without any kind of vetting at all. And they were given like 3 hours to do it before they slammed it into a vote. That's how Republicans get unqualified, disgusting people confirmed in these high-level positions. And we're seeing it again with Hegseth. If I were on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I call on those that are in leadership, Senator Cornyn, Senator Collins of Maine, Senator Murkowski of Alaska, who've already expressed deep concern about Hegseth, demand this report, demand the testimony, if she'll do it, of the victim of this purported rape, this alleged rape. Bring her in, have her testify. You see already, that's exactly what they don't want to have happen. That's why they're threatening her. That would embolden me. That would say to me as a senator, I definitely need to hear from that person now. You know, it's like the Matt Gaetz sex report from the House Ethics Committee. We definitely need that. Look how hard they're trying to bury it. And I'm sure the lawyer for this victim, this alleged victim, is going to come forward and offer her up as a witness. And Tim Parlatore, I think, crossed the line of his professional ethics as a lawyer in trying to threaten her with a court suit over what? The NDA? That NDA is not valid. That NDA to try to cover up a sex crime is by law invalid. She should just rip it up and use it as toilet paper because that's all it's worth now. And no, she doesn't have to return the money either. And that's the position I would take, a very strong position, if I represented this person. And so we're going to continue to follow it all. We have to every day, every way, about and bringing and shining light and examining with searing analysis and commentary somebody like Pete Hegseth. You know, he's right. He should have lost his job at Fox. You know, I think they relegated him to the weekend duty of the 26th hour of Fox and Friends. That's how much they cared about him. And they trotted him out on the ball drop on New Year's Day for the Fox coverage of New Year's. That's our new defense secretary, for those that think I'm making it up. And I'm sure the rumors have been going around. I mean, everybody knows that Hegseth was on his third wife, that he cheated on his first wife with his second wife, and now he's on his third wife. And now we have this. But of course, Donald Trump, who got a judge to be a rapist in New York, a technical rapist, because the jury in New York couldn't figure out whether he used his finger or his penis on E. Jean Carroll in that dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman department store in 1996. Of course, he would not care. The new reporting is Donald Trump doesn't care about the sex report. Of course, he doesn't care about the sex report. He's done worse to more people. Yeah. There's at least 25 women who've come forward on Donald Trump and said they, during one of his marriages, not even when he was single, were sexually assaulted and abused by Donald Trump. Some of them testified in a federal courtroom, and the jury, two separate ones, found against Donald Trump twice. 9-0, 9-0, 18-0 in federal court. That's Donald Trump's track record in trying to disprove that he's a sex abuser. So probably Hegseth's stock went up, not down, in the Trump selection process after he was also accused. Maybe they did a little high five over it. I don't know. It's all depraved. It's all disgusting. It's just obscenely unqualified and jeopardizes our national security. Go watch my other hot takes about Hegseth. Do you want a Secretary of Defense whose Christian values animate his very existence? He lives his gospel of right-wing Christian nationalism, whose goal it is to create Armageddon. So the guy that's supposed to prevent World War III actually wants World War III to happen and to reestablish heaven on earth. I'm not making this up. So whether it's his outlier beliefs that will infect his judgment under the commander-in-chief, or his sex crimes allegations, all of it is disqualifying. Somebody commented, but it's too jocular. Somebody commented on the Democratic side, where did Donald Trump pick this cabinet from? Is this from the famous bar scene in Star Wars? I mean, where did he get these characters from? You know, it looks like it's like the island of misfit toys. Got to put an end to it. First, you got to follow it. Then you got to track it. Then you got to bring it into the court system. And then you got to bring it into the confirmation process with the Senate. So I leave this hot take this way, demanding that Senator Cornyn, which looks like the one that's the most likely to demand these things, and on the Judiciary Committee, demand this report, demand the Gates report, demand background check proper on the potential Russian turned asset of Tulsi Gabbard, and vet it and sort it, and before you advise and ultimately consent or not consent to any of these picks, and reject Donald Trump's trial balloon that he floated. Why don't we basically put the Constitution on ice for 10 days, suspend it, let the Senate go home for 10 days, and let me just run amok appointing acting department heads and cabinet level positions for at least the first 2 years of my administration. How about we don't do that? How about we don't trash Article 1 of the Constitution and the role of the Senate in our checks and balance system? And we're going to follow it all through the courts as it winds its way through the courts, all through the confirmation system. We've seen this movie before in the Kavanaugh confirmation. We can't let it happen again. They think it's going to happen again. That's why Parlatore said the 4-letter word in MAGA circles, Christine Blasey Ford. They don't want that to happen again. We want it to happen again. We want the victims to come forward and be heard. We want the Senate Judiciary Committee and others to say their name and make Hegseth answer for it and explain why he entered into the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, and why he doesn't think it was a rape, and then get the victim side of the story and then have them vote. We'll continue to follow it. You're here on Legal AF on the new YouTube channel. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button, and join 50,000 people just since Election Day that joined this channel. I'm Michael Popok. I'm the curator. I put all the work together here. I bring on all the other contributors. Court Accountability Action, Dina Dahl, Shan Wu, Karen Friedman, Ignifilo, all here at the intersection of law and politics. Until my next video, I'm Michael Popok reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.